Hi, welcome. In this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about DNS, what DNS is, and then I'm going to kind of explain what subdomains are, host names, primary and secondary zones, and then I'm going to show you how to create a primary zone. Programs I'm going to be using for this video include Free Screen Recorder. It's a great resource to have to record different things that you're doing on your desktop. It's really handy to use if you're trying to create presentations. The other program I'm going to be using is a program called VMware, which is a virtual machine or a virtual environment that allows you to install operating systems without taking up the resources on my hard drive. And that's also a really cool program to have. I actually have Windows Server 2003 on there, as well as Ubuntu, which is a Linux type program. To get started, to give a better insight as to what DNS is, stands for Domain Name System. It's pretty much the most common method used to resolve host names to IP addresses, and it allows users to access resources on TCP/IP networks such as the internet. It's a really essential service for a network that uses Active Directory, and I have a lot of notes here, sorry, bear with me just a moment. The DNS service on Windows Server 2003 is pretty unique from other operating systems because it has the ability to store DNS information in Active Directory. So that's already, I believe that's already set to default. Once the information is stored in Active Directory, it is automatically replicated to all domain controllers, providing an easy backup mechanism. And I believe the company that actually came up with the idea of DNS was Bind, or the Berkeley Internet Naming Domain. And that's basically the standard standard method implemented on Unix and Linux systems. And there's a lot more interesting facts about DNS, but mainly for the purpose of this video, all I'm trying to point out is that it resolves host names to IP addresses. And then to give a better idea of this, and DNS really, I'm pretty sure, I'll admit that I am having a bit of a rough time with this class, but from what I understand of DNS, it's whenever you go to the internet, and we put in a website address like google.com, Google.com is actually, the way the computer interprets it, is an IP address. I don't remember what the IP address for Google is. I think if you go to command prompt, we can try pinging google.com, and there's the IP address right there. So instead of typing this in right here, the 74.125.224.16, which should work and bring you to Google. Yeah. Instead of having to do that every time, DNS, I'm pretty sure, is the process of converting that IP address to a host name. In this case, it would be google.com, which makes it a lot easier to memorize. The website address is not all these humongous amounts of IP addresses. And then the second thing I wanted to talk about was DNS zones. A DNS zone is a part of DNS namespace for which a DNS server is responsible. And the example that this particular book gives is Great Arctic North University may use the domain gnu.edu to identify computers within its organization. And then this chapter actually goes on to talk about subdomains, which are, domains that could be for faculties of engineering and business or anything like that. So you could have like anything with a different address to it, or a different domain that would classify itself as a subdomain. So like the engineering would be engineering.ganu.edu, and then if you had business, you could type business.ganu.edu, which would specify that it's still going to be within that network. But it's kind of a different branch, or a different department, if you will, of the main, the primary domain there. A primary zone is the first zone to be created, and all of the DNS records are created in the primary zone. A secondary zone has copies of primary zone information. Secondary zones contain read-only copies of DNS resource records. To modify resource records for a domain, you must edit the primary zone. Secondary zones will then copy the changes from the primary zone, or in some cases from other secondary zones, the copy the changes from the primary zone. And then the process of moving information from the main primary zone to the secondary zone is called a zone transfer. And then as an added note, some of the older DNS servers copy the entire zone database every time the secondary zone synchronized with the primary zone. Because during that time, because this was a time when bandwidth consuming fast zone transfer was developed. And then fast zone transfer uses compression and sends multiple resource records per message. And then it also talks a little bit about incremental zone transfers and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a primary zone. I'll open up my Windows Server 2003. I'll click Start, point to Administrative Tools, click DNS, click Forward Lookup Zones. As you can see here, there's nothing here yet, so I can right click on that, click New Zone, go to Next, and then we'll want to create a primary zone, because this is the first zone that we're making, and then the subdomains and the secondary zones would come after we create a primary zone. So click primary zone, click Next, and then for the zone name, we can name that, I'll name that domain1.classroom.com, and this goes back to what I was talking about the Arctic North University or whatever it was, using the ged.edu or something. And it says where X is the student number, and click Next. Leave the default name for the zone file of domain1.classroom.com.dns. So leave that blank, leave that how it is, and then go ahead and click Next. And then we're going to click on Allow both non-secure and secure dynamic updates. Click Next, go to Finish. Right click for Next. Okay, so after you click Finish, we're going to click on the Forward Lookup Zones folder, and then it's going to be listed right here, the forward lookup zone that we just created. And we'll right click on this and go to, or wait, wait a minute, let's back up here just a minute. Double click the domain. Let's double click this. And then we're going to click new host. Yeah, go to new host, or yeah, right click on the domain we just created. And then go to new host. If this area right here under name, under the new host is blank, we can type in mail. Because basically what we're doing is setting up a mail domain. In the IP address field, we'll type in 192.168.1.200. 68.1.200. And this actually, if this was a classroom environment, the mail server, no mail server would actually exist. This would basically be the IP address of the mail server if one existed. And because I don't have a network set up like that or whatever, then I'm just demonstrating how this would work. And then we'll go to add host. It was created successfully, and then if you look over here, let me go ahead and close this. This is the mail server that we created. And then we can right click on our domain again, and then go to new mail exchanger to further set up the mail server. Leave the host and child domain blank. Let's see, and the FQDN name, we can name that the mail domain 1 classroom.com, where X is the student number again, and then we'll go ahead and click OK. Right click the server and the DNS open, and then go to all tasks and click update server data file. Then we can close all that. So we're done. And again, what we did there was basically set up a primary zone for a mail server. And now we can click start and go to run, and we'll type in notepad space C Windows System 32 DNS domain 1 dot classroom dot com or .com dot DNS. What did we do wrong here? I'm not sure what happened there. Let's try this again. Click start, go to run, type in notepad space, and then whatever I said before. C was Windows System 32 DNS domain 1.classroom.com. And there we go. I'm not sure why I did that, but okay, it's working now. And then this is actually the records of the domain, the DNS domain that we created for the classroom. And it gives information on when it's going to expire. the default time to live, which is 3600. There's also some other, the mail design record for the mail server that we created. So that's, I mean, we know it shows what the primary zone's name is that we created. That concludes my video. Thank you for watching.